and welcome. So, this is the very first in what will hopefully be a series of podcasts slash interviews slash relational experiences.
Yeah.
Um, Let me just start off with introductions. I'm Harry, he and they pronouns. I'm in Los Angeles on Chumash and Tongva land, and I have the pleasure and the honor to be talking to.
Me. No, I'm just kidding. Devon, she, her. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, land of the Tiwa speaking Pueblos people.
Great. And so, just to give you all watchers and listeners out there a little bit of context, Devin and I have chatted a little bit about what this can be, but we also wanted to leave it kind of open ended because really I feel like this is in the spirit of relational mindfulness, which is what the Dharma Homies are all about, right? Like just simply practicing presence with each other, being open to however it unfolds, not trying to make it be or not be anything in particular. So yeah, we're honestly just kind of winging it. We pressed record and we said, let's just figure it out.
That's right. I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking, Devin, like actually like a simple way to frame this is, yeah, like this is a relational, it's a recorded relational exercise, right? In a way. So first of all, I want it to be mutual as well. So feel free to ask me any questions. And as I said, I'm just going to follow my curiosity. But just to start it off, to make it real homey and comfy, like why don't we just go with like some of the go-to icebreakers? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of a preview, but in any way that you want to share, what was a thorn about today?
Oh, definitely my anxiety. Yeah, I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder when I was like, my best friend was killed when I was 21, and then I went to therapy right after that, and they were like, "Oh, you definitely have an anxiety disorder." I was having like panic attacks and stuff like that, and so I, yeah, I have anxiety, and there are some weeks when I feel that like diagnosis so much more like in my system, and there are other weeks where I feel like it's kind of, yeah, just like plays in the background and it's like not that impactful. But for whatever reason, actually not for whatever reason, like I tend to have a lot of health anxiety. And so today my health anxiety is really high. And so, just kind of like working with like physical discomfort and anxiety around the physical discomfort. And then I think that the piece though that, you know, I've learned, and this is like an extended thorn, but and maybe I'm bright siding, but it feels important to say that like I think one of the things that I've learned, having had anxiety for all of these years, is that I can do a lot while I have anxiety. I can give a Dharma talk and be in connection with friends and loved ones and be by myself and kind of manage my internal experience, to the best of my ability. So yeah, I would say that today anxiety was definitely the thorn.
Oh,
Um,
again, my condolences and my empathy on your anxiety and the health concerns.
Thank you.
I actually, while you were speaking, forgot. Can we just take a moment to breathe?
Yeah, of course.
So, in response to the anxiety and also to just ground. So, before we go any further, let's just model what we preach.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just going to exhale and just kind of let what you said marinate, just being with the anxiety, letting it resonate with my own.
Mm.
Okay. So you probably guess what the follow-up is. Well, was there any, if any, roses today?
Yeah. Um, I asked this guy on a date who I met at a like mindful speed dating thing. And
Ooh.
this is the first date that I have gone on where it it's kind of blown my mind how much we have in common. Like he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I'm a Zen practitioner and I was a lawyer, but now I'm gonna be a therapist. And he's also got connections to San Francisco and like he also like loves therapy and and I was kind of reflecting that like connection and intimacy were the most important things in my life. And that was like kind of one of the things that I do to have fun. And he was like, oh yeah, me too. And so it was really cool to sort of to meet someone who was so like-minded. It was interesting, I think maybe like in my old patterning, like I'm like used to someone being like, and you're hot and I want to date you and all of this stuff, but there wasn't really that much there, but like we're gonna hang out again. And I don't know that just because it wasn't present in the conversation that maybe it's there, but I kind of I think that in order to not trip myself out about it, I'm just like, I've met a really cool person and I'm looking forward to hanging out again. And so like that's how we keep it like low stakes. And yeah, so well, I met yeah, the rose was I'm excited that I met a really cool person. And
Nice.
yeah.
Wow, I'm happy for you.
Thank you. I don't know what it means, but thank you.
I mean, it sounds like there's enough there that it could, even if it doesn't work out, turn into a friendship or something.
For sure. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good
Nice.
one. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah. So it's so cool to like meet someone who with so many similar values and interests that aren't already sort of in the circle. You know what I mean? Like, because after a while, you kind of know who folks are, but
yeah,
to
yeah,
just meet
yeah.
someone out of the blue like that is cool.
I know. It was surprising. He's all wow, so a lot of similarities after I was like telling him about myself. He's like, oh, this is interesting, a lot of similarities. And I was like, well, in what way? And then he was like, whoa, he shared what he was sharing. And I was, yeah, really surprised and excited. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, hey, keep us posted. Or not, or not.
We'll hear it, I'm sure, if something.
Okay, so this is a cool prompt that I learned recently from someone with a similar background. Rose, thorn, and a bud. Have you done this before?
Yeah, what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, or just something that could be something, or yeah, just something you got your eye on.
Hmm. Okay, let's see. Something I'm looking forward to. Um, my sister's coming in a couple weeks and we're gonna go like have like a little like mini vacation together. But I guess like that's kind of in a couple weeks. I think what I'm looking forward to like in more kind of like sooner is that I'm gonna go have dinner with my friend Davina on Saturday night. And I love talking to her. And we can like sit at the table and talk for like 3 hours straight. And I always feel like very seen and like my well-being has like increased because of our time together.
Nice, beautiful. So let's maybe go a little one step deeper. Is there a, if you really knew me, that you're okay with sharing with the world at large?
The world's gonna listen. Let's see. And if you really knew me, I guess maybe like there's a way that like in the Dharma Homies community, like as like one of the founding members, I think that there's a way that sometimes like like there's like kind of people sort of like project that like I'm doing really well or kind of got a lot of shit figured out. And I will say that like definitely suffer less than I did when I was younger. But that this year has been really, really hard. And, like, yeah, that like there were a lot of times where I'm like sobbing on the phone to, family back in California, or like, some of the other homies, and like kind of trying to walk my way out of a depression. And yeah, so it's like, I feel like there's a way that like yeah, like that it practices in so many ways embodied, and like I'm very far from enlightened, and I still suffer, and I'm very human, and practice has made it so that I suffer less.
Mm.
Imagine what my life would be without it.
Yeah, yeah, that's so well put. That's actually kind of a cool, I think, jumping off point, because if I had any agenda for this, it for tonight, it was to, well, selfishly to just get to know you a little better, because I mean I know you, but I don't know you, right?
Yeah.
But my in general, like my idea about the podcast was to just kind of hear everyone's like Dharma story in a sense. And yeah, so like just what was your earliest, if we could just kind of like start at the beginning, like do you have an early like spiritual experience that you remember? Like it doesn't have to be enlightenment, but just as a kid, like what was your earliest memory of like some of like, oh, there's like more out there than what I think there is? Does anything come to mind?
It's funny. I don't think I had an experience of like there's more out there, but I think that I desired to be in touch with something more than myself. So I did, it wasn't like some experience that like confirmed anything for me. It was more like I felt like some sort of like I felt like a seeker pretty early on. And maybe it was my whiteness, or I don't know what, but like there was a way that I kind of was like trying on different, like I went to mass with my, like Mexican Catholic neighbors, and then I was like, oh no, like I'm Jewish, like my dad's family. And then like, my parents raised me Unitarian, and I was like, what do Unitarians believe? And they're like, whatever you believe. So unsatisfied with that. I'm like, where is our doctrine? Like, shouldn't you be trying to like force me into some belief system? But like, they were like, follow your heart. And I was like, this sucks. It was so satisfying. And I think, I mean, it's possible that it was the Unitarian sort of like encouragement to follow my heart that led me into sort of trying a lot of different things. And ultimately, when I was 16 years old, my parents started meditating, going to Spirit Rock for like Dharma talks and meditation. And I was like getting into a lot of trouble. And my mom was like, you should come to Spirit Rock for a family day. So I brought my little drug dealer boyfriend, and he was the only person of color at the freaking thing. He was like, yeah. Anyway, it was a very interesting experience. But clearly something stuck with me. So
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Two points of resonance. One, so I grew up like, whoa, what is that? I didn't even click anything. What was that?
like this,
I
this do anything? Just for those who are listening at home,
I don't know.
balloons just appeared in
Wow.
Harry's video.
That's never happened. I don't know what that was, but maybe I'm about to say something super insightful. I don't know.
God was like, here's a foreshadowing.
Well, actually, I was going to be sacrilegious, because what I was going to say was I grew up kind of the opposite, which would like in a very strict religious household. And so like I have a lot of religious baggage and trauma. Ironically, though, after I like swore all of that off and like went through a whole period of like, partying and whatever, like I found my way somehow one day while I was meditating in a temple or something, I was like, oh my God, I'm back here in religion. Like it was something about the looseness, I think also can drive you towards spiritual practice in a way, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. It's funny because like I felt like I was in search of a doctrine and then, like the Dharma definitely offers, different kind of like ways to understand things and, like, but yeah, I mean, I think even in my teaching and the way that I relate to it, it's so much more like a heart practice for me. It's not
Mhm.
like, people start getting into lists and I start glazing over,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, and I actually do think the lists are helpful and important and stuff like that, but it tends to sort of not have as much kind of for me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you're one step ahead of me. So like what was it, what is it or what was it that first kind of like hooked you? Like okay, so you got in through Unitarians and your parents and the drug dealer boyfriend, but like was there a moment of like, oh, like this is gonna be a thing for me now?
Yeah. So when I was 21 years old, my best friend was murdered. Um, and it was pretty horrific, even beyond just the murder. And So I think like what happened is that like I just, you know, I mean, I think whether you've lost someone traumatically or non-traumatically, loss is just yeah, I mean, like I think that there's a way that grief can kind of make you available for some shit you wouldn't normally do. And I think that although like at 16 years old, I was like, like fuck this place. At 21, I was like desperate. Like I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to die, and I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't figure out. Yeah, I just felt stuck, and so like I was like kind of willing. I think they, like in recovery, they say this a lot. Like you become willing because of the desperation,
Mhm.
and I felt so desperate for relief from this suffering that I started practicing every day. And I found like a little practice group that was like comprised of like four people on my campus. I was going to Rutgers, like I had kind of made this big I decided to go to Rutgers full time, and then after my friend was murdered, my parents are like, "You have to go back," and I was like, "I don't want to go back," and they're like, "No, you have to go back. You got to keep living." Hindsight, I don't know that it was the best idea, but I understand their logic.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was like grieving on the other side of the country and practicing every day, and so like I became on fire for the ways that I could feel that it was easing my suffering because
Mhm.
my suffering was so intense at that point. So
Mhm.
21 is where I really sort of chart the start of my practice. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh, so curious. So, because I made my way to the Dharma through that desperation and not knowing what to do as well. I'm curious for you, like, was it, can you identify what it was? Was it like the practice? Was it the Sangha? Was it the space? Was it a teaching? Like all of it?
Definitely was not the Sangha. I was very glad that they existed, but I did not actually feel super connected. It was a little bit of a disconnected group. Everybody kind of had their lives, and so we would just like meet up and then practice together. But I think that what it was actually the practice. I think that it made me feel like there was something that I could do every day to try to help myself feel better.
Mm,
And and be and like and then slowly it just kind of took root.
hmm hmm Yeah. Okay. So just like literally, just like relief from suffering, like just that classic, like yeah, pain and wanting to cope with it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was just like following my breath, which is interesting because it's not a practice that I do now. I don't do breath practice, but
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a lifesaver.
Okay. So, yeah. So, is there a way that you can sort of like succinctly chart or describe how your Dharma has or your practice has evolved since then?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it remained a daily practice for me. What am I? I'm 25 years in at this point. So it remained a daily practice for me, I think probably for the first 10 years. So I would wake up, I would like essentially like go pee, then find a place to sit. And then I would do it when I was like working at this organization called Challenge Day. And, I'm like on the East Coast, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning there, which means that it was like, yeah, 1 a.m. in California. And like no matter what time it was, I was always going to like make sure that I woke up a half an hour before I needed to kind of like start getting to go so I could actually practice. And then at the 10-year mark, I experienced some medical trauma. I came to in the middle of my cancer surgery. And that really just changed my nervous system. And so I would like try to practice and I would brown out. Like I'd set my timer for 2 minutes and like I just like couldn't. There was a way that I couldn't like the way that like I know about like having previously practiced for 10 years just paying attention to breath. There
Uh,
was no, I couldn't direct my attention. It would just
yeah.
be like this, blah, 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 blah. Like it felt like I was just like, oh, and I couldn't place it anywhere. And I tried to go on retreat and just I would just disassociate. And so like I was just like in this huge grief process, not only because I had, like had to have this like cancer surgery and like that I had a cancer diagnosis at all, but like because of my nervous system, because like this thing that like had saved my life 10 years before,
Oh,
my house had burnt down. Like it was like this thing that was like this refuge had gone away in a
yeah.
town that really needed refuge. And so yeah, I struggled and I was like, I'm not giving up on this, which, in my life has been sort of like both a blessing and a curse. But I was like, I'm not going to give up on this. I have to figure this out. And initially it was just banging my head against the wall. Like I'd set the timer for 30 minutes and just like brown out and then like cry about how come I couldn't do it. And I'm going on 10-day retreats. I'm trying to do everything how I used to. And like I was just like, it was awful. Um, and then this is interesting. So then I started at that point, I had gotten far enough into being a practitioner that I was beginning to be asked to be a teacher, which felt really fucked up because I was like, I can't even practice this shit. And I'm like being
Mm.
asked to teach it. And like, I felt real wobbly. And I mean, I felt like I was able to be really honest with the people who were asking me to be teacher, talk about like my challenges, but they're like, in a lot of ways, it was like, well, you can do this. And so I would try, and I did it. And what that did was it actually put me in touch with tea. And
Mm.
tea had started doing a lot of learning around trauma. And because of his mindfulness background and his understanding about trauma, we started having conversations. And there were a couple other people in there who I was having conversations with about like how trauma impacts the nervous system. Before, like, I will say this that like people didn't really understand how trauma impacts the nervous system and then impacts practice. So
Mm.
I would get instruction from teachers that I should just try harder.
Mhm.
But like, I mean, like I was like in mud. Man, I was spinning my wheels. You ever see a truck that's caught in mud? Like those wheels just go, and that's where I was. But T was like, no, oh, that makes sense. Try this.
Mhm.
Oh, hey, this is something I'm learning. You should try this. And so all of a sudden, I started feeling like, oh my God, like this is just a different road into presence.
Mhm.
Like I just didn't, I couldn't see the road. So like here's my buddy who's like, oh, here, try this. And like, oh wait, well, T, right? He's always down to like be like, I'm in this with you, like let's strategize. And he's like, okay, you're gonna go on retreat, call me. And then like, what about, do you want to come on this retreat because I'm gonna be there? And like
Mhm.
so we started strategizing. And really, I mean, I think my relationship with him, like my friendship with him, really gave me back my practice, because kind of for a couple years I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and so now of course, what, 25, we're 25 years later. I think T and I have been friends now for 15 years. Yeah, like yeah, I think so. Yeah, my practice, how I teach, is really based in kind of an understanding of the nervous system.
Yeah.
And whether people are folks who identify as people who have trauma or not, most of us are pretty activated.
Mhm.
So offering trauma informed or nervous system informed mindfulness has been kind of like my jam. And
Yeah.
I think that there's been some, ways that I've had to grieve that the traditional path wasn't going to, initially I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to like be able to like offer teachings like at Spirit Rock or these other big organizations. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm not going on a month-long silent retreat,
Mhm. Mhm.
retreats at
Yeah.
all because
Yeah.
of, so yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So many curiosities, but let me try to hit the important ones. So, first of all, yes, I'm glad that you brought up tea because that's obviously such an important part of the story. Like, okay, so historically, just for the record,
Yes.
how and where did y'all meet?
Yeah, we met at an IB then it was called IB Inward Bound Mindfulness Education retreat, where he was asked, no, where we were both adult mentors. So
Hmm.
neither of us were teachers at that point.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking that he was like really weird. Like, really weird. Like I was, yeah, I mean, like the stuff that he was into, like, well, like what he was doing, I was like, I don't know about this kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's just weird. He was nice. I always felt like, oh, he's a kind person, but I was just like,
Yeah.
we are not from the same world. Like I kind of didn't have any context for a person like him.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny you say that because he refreshed my memory that I guess one of the earliest IBME retreats that I went on was one of his earliest, or maybe his first retreat as well as a mentor. And I just, yeah, same thing. Like he was into like laser etching and acro yoga and just like just these far out interests that like didn't
Yeah.
seem like they fit together. And it was cool, but it was like, who is this guy and how does he get into all these weird things?
Right? Like in the dance things, he's all dancing like free in his body. And I was like, I don't know about that kind of shit. Like getting down. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So what year is this around?
Well, if it was 15 years ago, I'm terrible at math.
So 2010-ish?
2010.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That about lines up. Okay. So I want to try to connect, not to make it about me, but my early-ish recollection of T was that, and I do have an early recollection of you. I don't know if you remember or not, because
You have an early recollection of you.
you do?
Yeah.
Okay, because my recollection is we both ended up in a training program, right? Like a facilitator training program
Huh?
for Against the Stream. And there were Vinny and Joanna had convened everybody for some training stuff. And my early recommendation, there was a training that was given by Ruth King, and you spoke on owning like white privilege. And it was the first time, honestly, I had heard someone, a white person, do that in a way that was like convincing to me, like not in denial, not like just talking the talk, but like actually like speaking from like lived learned experience. And I just remember thinking like, oh wow, she's really cool, first of all, and second of all, oh, so it's possible for people to like examine and be present with and own their privilege. It was like really an eye opener for me. So that's kind of my props
Wow.
to you, and that's my early memory of you.
Oh, Carrie, I feel so complimented like that. Yeah, what a beautiful reflection. Like, I really appreciate that. And I don't even, I mean, I remember the training because it actually signified kind of a shift in how I worked with whiteness. But meaning actually how I worked with other white people. That's actually that's the shift that it created for me. But like, I actually remember you before that.
Oh, okay. Do tell.
What I remember is that we decided, I don't know if it was T or I. Maybe it wasn't either of us. Maybe it was Shelby who gathered all of us at Ben Hellyville's, I think that's how you say his last name, house in Big Sur. And we all got together and hung out there. Just like it wasn't just teachers, it was like mentors. Mentors who were interested all hung out there together.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And all I remember is this funny. I don't think that it'll. I hope that you can cut this part out if you don't want. If you decide you don't want it to be shared. What I remember about you was where you were talking. You're like, yeah, I'm really avoidant. And I'm like, interesting that like someone who is like into like therapy and meditation and relational mindfulness is avoidant. And you were like, yeah, I'm really avoidant. I was like, oh,
And I still am.
turns out it's a blueprint, but now you're in a relationship, right?
Yes, yes, but they would probably say that I'm avoidant in as well in that context.
Pattern still comes up, but like it's right, it's how you work with it.
Yeah, 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 or don't.
Okay, very
But trying to.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, yeah, that's amazing. I didn't even recall that. So I guess that was before the whole training thing. Okay. Well, okay, so we could get into my shit too, but as you were talking, I thought that was a nice little segue point to um, the Dharma homies, because in a way, like I associate,
Yeah.
however you want to put it, like mindfulness of privilege, mindfulness of diversity, justice, whatever, you know, all those uncool words nowadays. But like that's such a integral part of the Dharma homies, along with being trauma informed. Um, can you speak to like how like what was the genesis of it? I mean, I know it's kind of like you and T's friendship essentially, but like was it just an idea that came up out of the blue one day, or did it evolve from something?
Yeah. That's such a great question. I'm realizing the sun is going down on me and
Okay.
I'm turn on the light. So maybe edit this part out. I don't know how this works, but I'm gonna just turn this light on.
Okay.
It's so much of an uglier light, but whatever.
That's okay.
Okay. So yeah, yeah. So the homies. Hmm. So it is a genesis of our friendship, but actually there's something that came even before that. So so I is this yeah. So essentially I decided that I wanted to do a Buddhist book study. And what I did was I pulled together all of these folks who I knew that I was kind of cool with to do this Buddhist book study. And that original group was T, Enrique, Day had just come out of being a monk. The way I met Day was crazy. I was teaching it against a stream, and Day was a monk and came up to me, and they were like, "Oh my God, I'm gay too, and I'm not gonna be a monk anymore. Can we hang out?" And so like they got my number on a piece of paper because they didn't have any belongings, including
Oh,
because they were in San Francisco taking care of Thich Nhat Hanh, who was having like heart surgery. Anyway, it was crazy. But they'd come out of robes, so they were invited. Sydney Fisher, and then my friend Stace. Um, yeah, I think it was the five of us. Maybe there was somebody else. I think it was just the five of us. Anyway, so we were just this little Buddhist book club, and sometimes we would like invite other people to join us. And at a certain point, Jessica and Jessica Escobedo and Joel Clements joined us, and and that's a pretty diverse group. In fact, actually, I think, yeah, like it was just, it happened to sort of be born out of people who I was like connected to. And then, like, and then T and I started offering a lot on our own. And it was a value of both of ours. And, like already inborn in me, like for me, like my work around like fighting against racism started when I was like 16 years old, and I saw that like the people that I hung around with were treated differently than I was being treated. And like all you have to do is listen, and you begin to see that like, oh shit, like your life experiences are really different than my life experiences. And as a white person, you don't, unless you're listening, like, the world is set up to sort of blind you. I mean, it's like any type of privilege. Like, I just didn't realize it. But I was around people who were like, no, this is my life experience. And I was like, oh shit. Like I kind of had some awakening around it, and I was like, we need to fight racism. But it was Ruth King's training, and I know I'm all over the place, I'll get to it, but it was Ruth King's training that made me realize like I need to be working with white people. Like I was like like I was at like protests when like Amadou Diallo was shot by the cops, and like so I was like my work around like disrupting racism was like much more sort of like out in the world and like way less about white people, and like now it's much more about white people. But as T and I were like, I mean, I think that Ruth King essentially awakened me, because like clearly racism is a white person's problem. Like like it is generated through whiteness and white privilege and all of that. But like, yeah, for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, it's in the world, but I wasn't like, oh, it's in me, it's in white people. We need to do this work. I was like, I'm going to fight it again. I'm going to fight against racism in the world. Well, it's still an important fight, but like it just where I located it was different.
mhm,
Located problem.
mhm.
So when T and I started working together, we were going into sanghas teaching relational mindfulness, and a lot of these sanghas were almost all white sanghas. And we had these conversations where he was like, we're really going to need to talk about whiteness. And I was like, okay, you know all right, I'm gonna have to like essentially lead this conversation. And like part of the way that whiteness functions is that in particular for white people, you don't talk about whiteness. It's like Fight Club, right? Like it's like you don't talk about this thing, because if you do, then you will face backlash. And so like it was like a new skill that I was beginning to develop in my facilitation in these spaces where they're like, oh, like we're transcendent, we're, stardust, we're all this shit. And I'm like, no, actually, you have an identity, and it's white, and it's actually really important that you own it, because you're just stepping all over everybody when you're not awake to it.
Mhm.
So T was kind of at my back, like you need to start having these conversations. We need to start having these conversations. And so like we really got on the same page. And then at a certain point, like the Buddhist book club turned into like a bunch of folks who were teaching. And then it kind of the next iteration was like actually like really circling around I think that the murder of George Floyd was the thing that actually really kind of like, we're like, oh no, we're going to be out loud about this shit. Like, we're not playing around. Like, we're putting this front and center. If this is not something that you're down with, then like, then you need to find another Sangha, because this is not something we're going to sweep under the rug. And I had been participating in a lot of white people group, like as a peer. And T was, he was like, I think it's time for you to start offering something formally. And so then that's where waking up to whiteness happened. And it felt like there was a way that it kind of, that George Floyd's murder really asked us to step up and be very, very clear about what our values were, even though we were kind of doing it in more, sort of like, class here, class there. Mm-hmm. Now it was like, oh, like, no, we need everybody to know where we're at. And this is one of the ways that we're going to do that. And, of course, at that point, we'd started offering things online, and not only classes, but like, daily meditations and everything like that. And it's just kind of like grown from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah, I mean, just speaking on my behalf, it's definitely one of the reasons why the Homies feels like at home, because those values are, I strongly share those values too. And I don't know if this was intentional or not, but like it occurred to me at some point that it's like, the Dharma Homies is such a cool branding, because in a way it's like paying homage and respect to the roots. A lot of us come from like that sort of Dharma punks type of background, but it's distinct because a homie is different than a punk, right? I mean, like I loved my time in the Dharma punks, and I needed that rebellious vibe for a reason. But as you said, putting it front and center, the diversity, the race, the social justice, it's like, it's so important. It's like, it's not just a class or just a subgroup. It's like, it's the thing, it's the whole thing.
Right.
And
center it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe one of the things that I really appreciate about how we center it is that like the nuance, the understanding is that our identities are intersectional. And so like, as T and I came together to talk, like I'm holding the whiteness piece, but he's holding the maleness piece. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm holding the queer piece, and, and he's holding, I mean, like, our identities are multifaceted, but essentially like the way that it was kind of the first time that I began having conversations about intersectional identities and how important that kind of work is. And then he put, him and the other, assigned male at birth Dharma Homies started doing like dismantling patriarchy groups, and and I'm meeting with other white folks to do like whiteness work, and like I was like, oh shit, like we're doing this from all these different angles. Mm-hmm. And that also felt different. Usually it's like one thing, but right. It's like, no, the understanding is that like our liberation is connected to all of us doing whatever work we need to do to uproot systems of oppression. Mm-hmm. And so then that becomes like the general orientation is like, we're about uprooting systems of oppression and like looking inside, and then also doing the work in the world.
Yep. That's why I love you guys.
It's funny because that's the second memory that I have of you is that we were on a teen retreat. And you were like, and you were talking, and we had a really good conversation. You were like, something had happened, and you were like, I think that like I made a microaggression, and you were like, I know you're white and you've done this work, so do you want to talk to me about it? And so we talked, and it was like, I was like, oh, I think for me that was the point where I was like, oh my God, I just love Harry. Like, like I love the earnestness and like the kindness and like the way that you cared so deeply, and that like that you could see me as an ally in that work felt so. I felt really honored.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and it was a learning for me too, because I did commit a microaggression. Not even micro; it was kind of a little bit bad, or not bad, but it was just it was ignorant on my part. And I remember thinking like, oh, I need to process this with someone. Like, who can I process it with? And then like you came to mind, and I'm like, no, but I can't. Devon's white. Like, I can't talk about this shit with her. But I'm like, wait a minute. But she's been doing the work of owning racial privilege. So why not? You know? So like learning how to see people as allies because of their intersectional identities. You know, like it's not like whiteness doesn't exclude you from talking about race. In fact, if anything, it enables, it helps the conversation along, you know.
Because I
So
know a little something about being ignorant. Because, like, right, like most white people don't even recognize that they're white until we get into like our adulthood. Like, white identity, like white racial identity development is like, yeah, right. It for white folks, it happens in adulthood. So, yeah,
yeah.
right. It was something I could really hold space for because I'd experienced what it was like.
Yeah, and most importantly for me, I think it allowed me to not exempt myself as a person of color. I'm not exempt from racism or ignorance or upholding blind spots or biases.
Right.
So yeah, that was a great moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, so I'm maybe gonna try to wind it down because we've had a lot of really fruitful discussion. I really appreciate your time, but it's late, so. Um, yeah, so just like in any way that you feel comfortable, like or that feels relevant to you, where do you see, now we've kind of brought it up to the present, where do you see the Dharma Homies going? What do you want for it? In either in terms of organizationally or just even for you personally, like where do you how do you want your practice to go? Well, I guess that might be two different questions, but you could take one or both.
Okay. I mean, I think that like the way like I have had change I've essentially like changed careers like three times since the Dharma Homies began. And so right now like I notice that like I am kind of like stepping away in like doing direct service stuff. It's not a long-term plan, but like it is right now what's happening because I'm a little overwhelmed by by what it is to be like a full-time therapist. And so I think for now it's like a little less of me. Like I'm still doing like some morning mindfulness, which feels really good. But yeah, I mean, like my hope is that like as I kind of step back from that like more sort of place of offering, that like all of like the newer homies, I'm thinking about like you and Afosu and Sarah and Kalila, and even the older homies like that folks step forward, and Servang I guess also too, like and like start offering things, because like I truly believe that it's the fact that we are a collective of teachers that's like one of the things that makes us so powerful. And like to your point about like our name like recognizes our lineage, but also a homie is a relational state.
Mm.
And like that's really different than like, I mean, you know, not to like, I mean, right, like most of us came through the Dharma punks, but like homies acknowledges this relationality. And so like
Mhm.
I actually think there's so much wisdom in this collective that like I want to see other folks like get out there and do shit. Like I'm like, lead a retreat, offer a class, like what do you feel excited about? I mean, you know, or create a podcast, you know, like what, you know, whatever it is, like that's the thing I'm most excited about. And like I know I do a lot of work on the back end doing like the admin stuff with T and Enrique and Servang and Kalila. And so like you know, at this point, I think that that's kind of like what I can do. I think I'll probably, as long as I can get white folks to do the waking up to whiteness stuff, like I will continue to do that, and then you know, kind of like drop in as I can, leading different things. And then, like, as far as my practice, I will say that, like, 5 years of leading practice, like, 7 days a week. And clearly at the end, like, we had more people supporting that. It really changed my relationship to practice. And I was telling T, I was like, I think I've like lost the love for practice because all I'm doing is offering it. And he was like, try practicing on your own again. And I was like, And so I have been practicing on my own again. And, like little 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And I'm like, actually, I do love this.
Mhm.
But I think maybe in this kind of stepping back from more of the teaching full time, doing doing my own practice, has been a really sweet way to kind of reconnect with the whole thing that got me here in the first place.
Mm, that's lovely. Yeah, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm so grateful to have joined the homies, and this is one of the ways that I feel like I'm just sort of naturally drawn to. I just listen to a lot of podcasts. Frankly, that's what it's really about. But it does kind of feel like very aligned with just yeah, just kind of modeling and showing off like two people relating to each other in hopefully what feels like an authentic and honest kind of way. And so yeah, I say all that to say I'm very grateful just for the homies itself as well as being part of it because it really does feel like something special. I just want you to know that it's not only because you asked me to join. Like but even by itself, before I was asked to join, I always like really admired you all from afar. So just thank you.
Yeah, fuck yeah, Harry. I mean, like, yeah, like, it's, it's so funny. Like, I'm someone who will make like pretty quick decisions about things for better or for worse. And T's really taught me to slow down a little bit, and he's really intentional about what he does and can see like 10 miles in advance like what might be challenging and can kind of prepare. But it was so interesting because I remember him calling me and he was like, I just led a retreat with Harry. He's like, that guy, he's like, I think he should be a homie. And I was like, oh shit, you're totally right. Yes, we need Harry to be a part of the Dharma homies.
Oh
And
wow.
like it was like both of us were like talking about the things that we loved about you and like how much we felt like there was such an alignment in the values of like how you live your dharma. And so I'm so grateful that you said yes. And so grateful that you're following your yeah, your passion and doing the podcast, and to have a Dharma Homies podcast and to be the first guest on the podcast.
Yes, of course, you have to be. I mean, this is ground zero.
Yeah, I realize, Harry, that you said you can ask me questions, and you've been asking all of the questions, which
I,
I've appreciated. I mean, I think, like in a podcast, that can be a helpful way to do things. But yeah, can I ask you a question?
I was just gonna ask if you had any questions for me. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess like I'd love to hear, like, since you've been like teaching with the homies, is there something that stood out to you that you've really enjoyed about being kind of, yeah, in the role as teacher with the homies, like in what you're doing?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, so many things, but I think what comes to mind probably is a little bit related to, but distinct from what you were saying about where you felt like you were leading so much practice that you were almost over it. Like for me, I was still at a point where I was leading groups and leading meditations and stuff, like when asked on occasions. So I always treated them as if they were like special occasions, and I'd get like a little nervous about it and like, kind of performative about it. But one of the things I love about just the consistency of having a weekly or some weeks more than weekly schedule is it's kind of like my 10,000 hours in a way, like at a certain point it's like, oh yeah, I'm leading tomorrow, okay, no big deal. Like I don't have to do anything special. I just have to show up and like kind of in a way guide people, narrate my own practice,
I
and
believe it.
and that's usually what ends up being the most authentic and the most real is just showing up myself, and people, that's what people kind of like gravitate towards.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Right. There's a way that, like, as we just kind of like move more into the teacher role, it's like, all right, like, what's authentically arising, and like, how can I show up and share this authenticity in a way that might be supportive for other people?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's really just like a small example of just how to show up as a person, which I feel like you and T and everyone really, but you two in particular do so well. Like just yeah, just the idea of being your authentic self and not having to be some special, extra wise, supernatural being, you know, like that's really um yeah, it's something I aspire towards actually, and something I'm trying on more and more as time goes by.
Yeah, yeah, you're doing it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, great, so lovely to be asked and to feel wanted and appreciated. Okay, so I appreciate your time. I do want to make sure we end on a, you know, not like we're dragging it out. So, last curiosity, any teaching that has resonated with you that you've been working with, or just any like art or music or film or books or anything that's been sparking joy or curiosity for you lately that you'd like to share with folks?
Hmm, that's a great question. I'm digging through the archives in my mind. Huh. I feel like I've been so oriented in this learning process of doing therapy that, like, I don't know that there's like, I haven't really consumed much.
Or maybe a moment in therapy where a client gave you an aha moment?
Hmm. That is a great question, too. A bunch of them. But of course, like, I'm like trying to like find in the archives. Um, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm regularly like kind of impressed by the folks that I work with and grateful that they allow me to, um, yeah, be a part of their growth process.
Hmm.
Um,
Can I reframe
yeah,
or rephrase?
yeah.
You mentioned that you've been getting into your own practice more lately. What's been alive for you in your practice?
Mm, I think how important resourcing is for me. That like there's been times in my life where I've felt like things were a burden, like the having lived through that trauma was a burden. And now I'm like, man, that was a blessing because I get to do a practice when I practice that is about enjoying this moment, and
Hmm.
that it's like specifically and importantly oriented to like, I can't tell you how well I know the trees from this seat. Like, I know the way that I've charted the growth of this pine tree that's out my window because I've been here now for 2 years. Like, the ability to connect in the here and now with what doesn't suck has been a lifeline,
Hmm.
was a lifeline, and is a lifeline now. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. That's beautiful. I've I've stolen so many little Devon lines here and there. I don't even know if they're yours, but stuff that I hear you say, including "what doesn't suck," 1% here and now, like all that stuff. I'm just like straight stealing it from you. Just letting you know.
They're on offer. I would love everybody to steal it. Yeah, like you are welcome. The more that instruction gets shared, I feel like the more folks who have a struggle finding an anchor get to be supported. So please.
Great, great. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to give you your proper credit while we're here.
Actually, I think T and I co came up with a 1% more ease.
Okay.
And we were floating on the Rio Grande in like these floaties almost 5 summers ago. And we were having a conversation, and it was really, yeah, it was a really kind of like deep and interesting conversation. And then that sort of arose out of it. And it was, yeah, really, yeah.
Uh,
With,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the best when it just naturally arises, right?
Oh,
Especially in relation with someone.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That feels like a good place to pause it. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.